2024 is shaping up to be the single most bullish year for Bitcoin ever, and it's honestly not even remotely close. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why this is the case, and number 4 is huge, an absolute game changer. Point number 1, politicians. This year at Bitcoin Miami 2023, we saw Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Robert Kennedy Jr. all on stage talking about the importance of self-sovereign money. Let's watch some clips. First up, RFK Jr. talking about the importance of Bitcoin and what he'll do to protect our rights regarding that.
As president, I will make sure that your right to hold and use Bitcoin is inviolable. First, I will defend the right of self-custody of Bitcoin and other digital assets. You should be able to own your own private keys the same as you own the keys to your car or own your wallet.
He starts with the most important thing, self-custody. If you don't have control of your keys, you don't have control of your coins. In this clip, Vivek Ramaswamy talks about the importance of competition and how that environment breeds a more creative environment.
Competition actually breeds innovation. I think the government needs to be less insecure, more secure in its own value proposition, rather than going after people who actually offer alternatives. That's what it means to be an American. We're the pioneers. We're the explorers, the people who will chart a new course in whatever direction is given to us. I'll tell you, Thomas Jefferson, he would have been mining for Bitcoin if he were alive today. I have little doubt about that.
Thomas Jefferson would be mining Bitcoin today, he says. I have no idea if that's true, but I see where he's coming from. The founding father that invented the swivel chair would be right there with the creators, the innovators, the thinkers, and the tinkerers, coming up with new ways, new innovations to use an exciting technology like Bitcoin. In this clip, Tulsi Gabbard says the quiet part out loud. The quiet part being those in power want to stay in power and they don't want you to know how much they like being in power. And Bitcoin undermines all of that. They don't really understand it, they being the politicians at the top of the political food chain, but they don't like it. Let's take a listen.
The fact that we are so limited already in our ability to use cash is evidence of where this path leads. The fact that we are seeing what's happening in Europe with France and Italy, you spend over €1,000 in France, you are suspects and possibly could be investigated. So it's not an imagination about where this road heads. Once we give up our economic autonomy, we give up our freedom. Once we allow someone else to control our wallet, they control our freedom. And that's why when you look at any conversation in Washington around Bitcoin, the first thing you recognize is most of them don't even know what they're talking about. Bitcoin is a word, people use it, what does it mean? Nobody really knows. But they know enough to know that they shouldn't like it because it will undermine their ability to control us.
They know enough to not like it because it'll undermine their ability to control us. I put politicians at point number 1 because it is extremely important. It doesn't matter which way you lean politically, left, right, center, nowhere at all. The important thing here, the number 1 takeaway from point number 1 is that people are talking about Bitcoin. When have we ever had major political party runners talking about Bitcoin? RFK, Vivek, Tulsi Gabbard, all people that are in the news, all part of the collective consciousness. People might not agree with them. You might have an issue over here on this point. You might have a problem with this person on that point. It doesn't matter. If either Vivek or RFK were to be the president of the United States and adhere to what they've said in regards to Bitcoin, all of that other stuff would fall by the wayside. I've seen all kinds of people on Twitter saying, you forget, they're still politicians and they'll do whatever it takes to get into office. If any pro-Bitcoin politician were to get into office, be the president of the United States, it doesn't matter what their stance on this or that, X or Y, 1, 2, or 3 is, because Bitcoin, as we all know, fixes this. As long as a Bitcoiner gets into office, the rest will fall into place. Point number 2 is the nation-state Bitcoin race. In this next clip, Jack Mallers announces how Strike is now available to over 3 billion people, giving almost half of the world's population access to Bitcoin.
You guys see that orange speck there? Hope, someone said? The little country that could. That's E4. That's our license. And that's our headquarters for what is now officially, as of this morning, Strike going global and global expansion. So Strike is available to 3 billion people. It's awesome. It's really amazing. And if you look at this map, it's a lot of the global south, Central America, South America, lots of Africa, India's in there. We're so proud of it.
Strike is now headquartered in El Salvador, probably because of those tax incentives. Fold is going there as well, from my understanding. In my opinion, it's just a matter of time before other countries try to court companies that will attract the best and brightest to their shores. Point number 3 is the halving. The fourth halving will put us into the fifth epoch, and I find this rather interesting because it ties in line with a few other things that have to do with fours. If you've been in the Bitcoin space for more than a few months, there's a good chance you're aware of both of these things. The first one has to do with the turnings. You have the high, the awakening, the unraveling, and the crisis. If the creation of Bitcoin happened during the high, and a few years later we had the awakening, which led to the unraveling, and this last halving leading us into the crisis, which you could say we're on the tail end of now, that will lead us back around to the high. It is my belief that we will see Bitcoin reach new highs as we approach this halving and lead into this next bull market. The other point I want to make here is that hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times, and good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. If we're at the weak men creating hard times point, that will lead us back around to point one. These hard times that we're currently in, creating strong men. And what do you see right now, more than anything in the Bitcoin space? If you've been paying attention, then you've been seeing a lot of building. All of the Bitcoin companies and endeavors that forgot to stay humble are no longer with us. And now we are with those that did stay humble, and we are building from here. As we head into 2024, the chances that we see unparalleled highs on all fronts. I don't mean just the price of Bitcoin. I mean everything. Innovation, ideas, creativity, everything concerning the Bitcoin ecosystem, which effectively encompasses all things, or will soon, will continue to gain in value and worthwhileness, at least those things that have the fundamentals under their belt and understand the underlying nature of what Bitcoin truly is. Sound money for anyone, anywhere. Point number 4 is the biggest game changer of them all. We have never, ever in the entirety of humanity seen something like this. We've seen points 1, 2, and 3, but we have never seen number 4. Point 1, we've seen politicians. Point 2, we've seen other nation states do things in regards to Bitcoin. Point 3, we've seen other halvings. But point 4, AI, we have not seen.
You mean like how does one AI knows the edges of its identity?
Yeah, and I think the answer is trivially simple. The answer is Bitcoin private keys. We just got through a talk about self-custody. It matters for digital life forms, I would argue, just as much or more, perhaps, than it matters for us bags of meat.
I'm going to take this a step further. Once AI understands what money is, it will see that Bitcoin is the only option. There is no second best. Just imagine for a moment that what Derv here is saying is accurate. Private keys might be the, no pun intended, key to which AI gains some sort of personhood. That seems like an absolute game changer to me. What does all this AI talk have to do with the price of Bitcoin? It means one thing. More people are talking about Bitcoin, more people are adopting Bitcoin, and that's all good. I'm curious, which of these 4 points you think is the biggest reason to be bullish as we head into 2024? Leave a comment below and let me know.